Today we have our guest Christian Harris from Move Fast, Lift Heavy. My name is Rob Cutrone, again on the Social Capital Podcast. Now, the guest that I have today, Christian Harris from Move Fast, Lift Heavy, when you talk about social capital to me always meant someone who had a real grip on the community. Christian Harris here has proved himself in the fitness space over the last solid decade. He's gone from CrossFitter to now literally one of the nation's best CrossFit athletes and arguably one of the fittest guys in America. So I'm super excited, so happy that Christian could join us, and thanks again, Christian, for being here. It means a lot. I know we've been talking about this for quite a long time, so thank you so much for being here today. I really appreciate it.
Absolutely, man. It's an absolute honor to be on the podcast.
Appreciate it.
Yeah.
And, it's funny because Christian and I actually met, I want to say, late 2017, early 2018. I know I founded 62 West Main Street probably in September of 2017. I know we had chatted probably through Instagram, just admiring, your success in the space, truly being somebody that I personally could say I looked up to. And now what's so nice is that every Wednesday we have a run we can look forward to where we run together. It hasn't been so warm, obviously, now that it's December, which is insane. But it's so great to connect, and hopefully we'll tap into the tips and tricks that make Christian tick. So with that being said, Christian, kind of give us a light as to where you are today and really what you're up to.
Today, I am what you would call semi-retired from the CrossFit space. Competed in CrossFit, as Rob said, for over a decade now, and just having to be on and competing at such a high level, it takes a toll on you. And this past season was my last, for now anyway. And so I'm taking a little bit of a break. So right now, big focus for me is running is not something that has been an absolute joy of mine. So
Sure.
I'm trying to turn it into one of those things. And I've been, running 3 to 4 times a week. We do our Wednesday runs.
Sure.
Trying to build out a little run community called the Move Fast Run Club. And that's been very enjoyable for, finding a sense of community, but also a little bit of camaraderie and a little bit of competing in there. And aside from that, running a gym, running an online training programs, running an apparel company while also trying to be a husband and father.
Sure.
Those are the things that keep me busy on the day-to-day, for sure.
Sure. I mean, a lot to naturally unpack there. A lot to unpack. You talk about your involvement now in running. I would imagine it's safe to say over the last 10 plus years as a CrossFitter, running was always something you've been doing. Is running something you always enjoyed doing, or is that something you kind of treated more as almost as punishment as you were training?
Yeah, I mean, we spoke about this a little bit the other day on our run, and, growing up playing sports, running was always looked at as a punishment. Baseball was my primary sport, so in baseball, there's not much running that's being done. So anytime we did run, it was looked at as punishment. If you showed up late, if you, made too many errors or whatever the case may be, running was always one of those things. All right, take a couple laps around the field, join us, when you're done, kind of thing. And so from early on, for me, it was never enjoyable. When I got into CrossFit, running is definitely a big part of what you do in CrossFit, but it wasn't a strength of mine, and I've always neglected it. And I would say around 2017, 2018, I started to take it a little bit more seriously, started to really try to double down on it to make it a better part of my game, right? In CrossFit, you need to not have too big of a hole in your game, right? So I was more of a strength athlete. I was a very anaerobic type athlete, playing college football. I was very explosive, great at the short duration sprints and things like that. So anything more than 800 plus meters, I didn't look forward to. So I started working with a coach, and that's when I was really first introduced to heart rate zone training, specifically for running, getting into the zone 2 heart rate, which is, I think it's becoming very popular now, working your zone 2. But that's when I was first introduced to it, around 2017, and started to incorporate it in my training, and I really started to feel the benefits and the difference in being able to run. And the funny thing is you have a bit of an ego when you first get into zone 2 training, at least most people, from what I've experienced. You want to run faster than what you really should be. And it's kind of like you need to pump the brakes a little bit and really respect what the heart rate zone is telling you. So for many runs, I was running at a way slower pace than I thought was appropriate, but I just tried to buy into it, and over time, 2, 3, 4 months into it, you really start to reap the benefits of it. So the zone 2 stuff is definitely a big game changer for anybody that's looking to better their running or just aerobic capacity in general.
And for those that don't know, those who are listening outside of the Long Island, New York State, tri-state area, this man I'm speaking to, his body is carved out of stone. For those that don't know, the man is a chiseled monster, and he's certainly easy to make a ton of other men who are in incredible shape very intimidated. With that, and again, Christian, there's no doubt about it. With that, guys, requires what I would absolutely say is a must, and that's discipline. You don't get to where Christian is, or you don't get to success in industries, right? Obviously, in this case, in the fitness space, in the CrossFit space specifically, you don't get to these peaks without discipline. Christian is one of those guys I know just from our relationship, and as our friendship grows. He's somebody that at 4:45 in the morning I can text and say, "Hey, we running today?" And the answer is absolutely yes. So Christian, talk to me about some of the things, and especially our listeners who hopefully are in the fitness space or potentially the entrepreneurship space, who are looking for the tips and tricks that keep you disciplined, that keep you down, that keep your eyes open but your head down. Talk to us about some of the things that you do, or any sort of hacks that you have to keep that level of success as your North Star, as I call it.
Yeah, it's a great question. I feel like discipline is a very big buzzword right now as well. And it's kind of what I really, truly pride myself on, is being able to stay very disciplined. It's not something that has always come easy, but it's something that you need to develop over time. It doesn't just come at the snap of a finger, right? So one of the big things for me is my morning routine and just the habits I've created over the past 10, 15 years or so.
Take us through, what does a morning routine for Christian look like?
Sure, yeah. So I'm up at 5 in the morning, really 5:03.
Sure. Now, I know you said something. What is it that your alarm clock says when it goes off? Remind everybody.
So I have a note, my alarm goes off 5:03 every single morning, and the note that I put in there is, "You're a fucking savage."
That's right.
And that just kind of starts the day with a little boost of confidence, right? It's like a little note, just to get me a little hyped up for the day.
Sure.
So I'm up at 5:03. I brush my teeth. I go through all of my bathroom things, right? I have a big glass of water, lemon, cayenne pepper, apple cider vinegar. I hop into the cold plunge. I do 2 to 3 minutes in there, no matter the weather, no matter what time, if it's raining or not. I pop into there to start the day. And from there, depending on what my day looks like as far as a coaching standpoint, or if I'm working from home, I'm going to get some sort of fitness in, depending on what I have going on, I'm either going to do that at the gym, or I'm going to do that at home, or I'm going to meet up with the run club and Rob, and we're going to go for a nice run. So I always start the day with hydration, and I start the day with movement. For me, movement is medicine. It's one of those things that when I work out, I have much more mental clarity for the rest of the day. I feel much more at ease. I just feel much more dialed in and focused. The days that I don't start my day with fitness, I'm definitely much more on edge, much more irritable. And I've just found that my better days always start with some sort of movement. Now, for the person that struggles to find the time to work out, it's one of the reasons why I work out early, is because there's always time first thing in the morning to get it done, no matter what your schedule looks like. So from a discipline standpoint, if you're somebody that struggles with trying to work out or get your fitness routine in check, you could start by simply waking up literally just 20 to 30 minutes earlier and getting some sort of movement in for the day. It does not have to be this extravagant workout where you're in the gym for 3 to 4 hours. You can literally wake up, do some body weight movements, some push-ups, sit-ups, some body weight squats, and then get some blood flowing, get some endorphins running through the body, and it's going to be a great start to your day.
I couldn't agree more. And I think what's really important to take away from what Christian said is that, you don't, no one's going to go from couch potato to top 1% athlete in the world, right? No one's going to do that. What it is going to require is the consistency day in and day out of like Christian said, that the buzzword that is discipline, right? To be a disciple of discipline. And I think as long as you have a mission every night when you go to bed, and every mission every morning when you wake up, and you have that same mission and that reminder that you are absolutely a savage, and you need to remind yourself that, and let that just be a mindset reminder, right? Let that alarm clock be the first thing you see that reminds you who you are and what you're set out to do today. And I think it's so important, young men, young women, regardless of age. I think it's extremely important that every day you wake up with purpose. Purpose is what's going to really propel you to be the best version of you, and that's something that those who know me and those who listen know how big I am on ultimately achieving and yielding the best version of what yourself can be. I can tell you this, that the 4 big pillars that I'm very big on, and I'm sure Christian would agree, is being physically fit 1, mentally fit 2, spiritually fit 3, and then 4 would be financially fit. So when you look at Christian's morning routine of waking up at 5:03 and cold plunging and moving his body, is that, this isn't something that happens for him 1 day a week, 2 days a week, 3 days a week. This is something that at a very minimum, and I'm sure I can speak on his behalf, is happening at least 6 days a week. If there is a day, whether it's his kids running and jumping and waking him up, maybe he slept in, as he might have had a late night workout. All these things are wired throughout this man, that I know his goal is to be the best version of himself, right? Because when Christian is the best version of himself, he's going to be the best husband, the best father, the best business partner, the best trainer, the best coach, and the best friend to the people that he surrounds himself with. When Christian talks a lot about some of the things like cold plunging and the supplementation potentially he takes, so I kind of wanted to dive into that. Christian, are there any supplements out there that you're using right now, or you have used, that maybe somebody in the fitness space needs to know about?
Yeah, some of these companies I'm endorsed by, some I'm not. So I'll kind of just run through the things that I use on a daily basis to help me throughout my lifestyle. So what do I do here? I use a supplement called Athletic Greens.
AG1.
AG1.
Sure.
I don't know if you're familiar, but it's essentially has all of these vitamins and minerals built into this powder packet that you would take once a day. And I really like it because in the past, I was somebody that was ordering vitamin B12, vitamin this, vitamin that, and like having all these different bottles and all these different pills. It kind of got a little annoying after a while, to say the least. So for me, anything that's going to make my life a bit easier, it's going to allow me to buy back some time, I am all for it, right? So AG1, instead of having all these different pill bottles, it's literally a pack, tear it open, throw it in water, you're good to go. So that's one that I use. I like to use LMNT, which is a hydration supplement. I take at least one packet a day, depending on how much sauna I'm doing or how much working out I'm doing. Also time of year, right? The hotter it is, the more I'm going to sweat. So I'm going to want to supplement with maybe 1 or 2 packs of that. Another one that I use pretty recently, I'd say over the past 3 or 4 months, is HVMN by it's Ketone IQ by HVMN. It is a ketone supplement. To be honest, still learning like the science behind it and how it exactly works, but it's something that I use on my runs when I'm working behind the laptop for hours, or if I need to suppress my appetite for a bit. I've found that this little shot of Ketone IQ really helps me to stay sharp and to stay focused, especially, again, when it comes to running and doing my work behind the computer. When I use it on runs, I find myself being much less distracted in a negative way.
Sure.
A lot of times, if you go on a long run, you can start to get into that headspace of like, this kind of sucks, like I want to be done now kind of headspace. So this kind of helps me to stay very focused and engaged in the run. When I'm working behind the laptop, I'm doing a lot of creative work, whether that is programming for our online training programs, or if I'm doing creative work for our brand, Move Fast Lift Heavy, a lot of work on Adobe Photoshop and Illustrator. I find myself much less inclined to want to pick up my phone, and I'm much deeper into the work that I'm actually doing. So it makes me a little bit more present in the work that I'm in. And lastly, the reason why I like it is the appetite suppressant thing. If I know I'm going to be at maybe 2 games back to back for my sons, that could be 3, 4, 5 hours without food. And just the way that I've developed my eating over the past 10, 12 years, I'm typically somebody that eats about every 4 hours or so. So if once I get to that 4 or 5 hour range without food, I could get a little bit hangry, right? So this helps me to stay pretty even and not too concerned with food when I use that.
Yeah, listen. I can speak very much so to just piggybacking off of Christian and the benefits of the Ketone IQ, right? Like promoting mental clarity is one of the effects. I can speak to that. Promoting energy, I can speak to that. Something I've been doing recently is I've been trying to fast till about 2, 3 p.m. And I know 2, 3 p.m. Is the time in which I really want to eat. It's the time my body says, hey, Rob, you need to put something in your stomach now. But I'll buy some time by just taking a shot of HBM and Ketone IQ and taking that to about 5, 6 p.m. There is so much to be said about fasting and the use of supplements. But naturally, none of these things are done without the pillars that make us successful, right? In this case, Christian kind of broke down his day-to-day routine, his morning routine, the supplements. Christian, we talked a little bit about.
There are some more.
Sure. And we'll definitely make sure that we can put all the supplements in the link in our bio. But there's got to be something that got Christian excited and got Christian really, really thrilled to be an authority figure in this space. Not just in the physical space of CrossFit and the CrossFit world, but obviously in the social media world that we're in. Christian is one of those guys that is known Christian's known in the space, and he has shared time with those alike in the space, and I know the power of social and the power of a network, and all the great things that come with that, but none of them really come without the ability, like we talked about, the ability to be disciplined, the ability to wake up and having a routine. But what I'd like to do is actually to take our listeners and our viewers back. I want to take them back. I know we talked about where Move Fast, Lift Heavy is today, but take me back to the 23-year-old Christian Harris that kind of stumbled into CrossFit and how you got started, and now to be a proud brick and mortar owner as well as the online side of your business.
Sure. So I played sports my entire life, and when I got to college is really where I fell in love with working out and just that whole aspect of just what hard work can do for you, how hard work makes you feel. And I started to work at this place called Parisi Speed School over in Islip. And it was a strength and conditioning facility for athletes that were looking to improve their 40-yard times if you were a football player, or get a better time in the 100 if you were a track star, or just improve your change of direction if you were a basketball player. So I worked with athletes ranging from 8 years old to athletes in the pros. And that's really, really where I got my love for working with athletes or people in general on just trying to become a better overall human. One of my coworkers at the time, my buddy Greg Melita, he introduced me to CrossFit, and he's like, you gotta try this. You'd be great at it.
Now, what year is this? Now we're backing up. What year is this?
This has got to be around 2009, 2010.
So CrossFit is kind of just like a new thing right now. Am I right in saying that?
Yes,
if I can go back, right?
It's starting to get some
traction,
some notoriety.
Sure.
Yeah, it's right at this point. I think they were in a partnership with ESPN. So I remember seeing it a few times, just kind of flicking through the channels, but really never gravitated towards it. At the time, I was just kind of doing, the Parisi, the speed training, the sleds, the explosive work, all that kind of training. And, I put it off for about a year. Like, he kept telling me, you got to try it, you got to try it. I'm like, this is stupid. It looks dumb. And I finally tried to work out, and it kicked my ass. And I'm like, I need more of this.
Sure.
So I immediately immersed myself fully into it. I ended up getting my level 1 certificate within the month of trying my first CrossFit workout. Within 2 months, I was working at a CrossFit gym. And then fast forward another 4 or 5 months, I'm at my first CrossFit Games regionals in 2012.
Addicted at this point.
Addicted.
Yeah.
I mean, you name it. I was eating paleo. I was following CrossFit.com. I mean, I was fully submerged. I had high socks. I had the whole bit.
Looking the part, being in the part, and this became 100% your ecosystem. Sure.
Yeah. So, I got into it, really immersed myself, had some success early on. Was able to make regionals my first go at it. I placed 8th that year. And that really got me chomping at the bit, like, all right, if you can come 8th and just get into this, like, what's going to happen? You're 2-3 years into this, really diving down head first. And that's basically what I did for the next 10, 12 years up until this past year. I was really head first into it. In 2014, I had major pec surgery. I tore my pec at a competition out in California. And with that downtime, I always knew that I wanted to open my own facility once I started working with athletes. And since I tore my pec at the time, I wasn't training heavy. I was maybe in the gym for an hour a day as far as my training was concerned. I was still working with athletes, but I had a lot more downtime now to maybe open a business. So that's what I did. I opened my first CrossFit gym in 2014. It was right behind Costco there.
And where was this? What town is this?
On Collin Drive. in Holbrook.
Okay. Shout out to Holbrook.
Shout out to Holbrook, giving me my humble start.
Sure.
And it was very short-lived. Within 2 months, my landlord was kicking us out for dropping barbells and noise and, music and all that kind of stuff.
Sure. Everything that's fun about CrossFit.
All the fun stuff
we
couldn't do.
Sure.
So during that time where I was kind of vetting out spaces to open, I was working out at a place called CrossFit Athletic Academy with my now business partner, Anthony. And he was always somebody that was super cool to work with. Like, he would always let me pop into the gym. I'd work out with him while I was like looking at spaces. And I just shared with him, the struggles of trying to open up a space and the struggles that I went through at the previous gym that I was at, because he was actually a transplant from that gym as well. So we both kind of came from the same roots and then tried to take our own paths. And so we always connected on that level. So when I was getting kicked out, I was telling him about the situation, and he's like, oh, funny you should mention, I'm actually looking to get out of the space that I'm in right now. I'm having issues with my landlord. So we ended up merging together. A few weeks later, we scrambled, we found the space, and we were on Church Street in Holbrook. We were there up until 2020.
And what was the name of that business?
That was called Freedom Athletic Academy. So we kind of combined my name and his name. My name was Freedom Barbell. His was CrossFit Athletic Academy. And we kind of merged the two together. And we opened up Freedom Athletic Academy. And we moved our space in 2020. Literally that week of the COVID shutdown. Got into our space, which we're at now, down in the foreign trade zone. We opened up MFLH training. Move Fast, Lift Heavy training. And that Friday, the shutdown happened, and we were like, holy shit, this is real right now.
Sure. We're going to see what we're made of at this point. We're going to see how tough we are. Sure.
Exactly. And fortunately, we worked our asses off to try to sustain some of our membership base. And, we're fortunate enough that we have a very supportive community that really carried us through most of COVID. But once the government started pushing us back to, I can't even remember at this point if it was...
It was all a blur for me too. It was all a blur. COVID, as far as COVID, was all a blur. From 2020, though, the birth of the Ronkonkoma Move Fast, Lift Heavy Gym, to now December of 2023, I can speak on Christian's success in the space. I mean, if anyone has ever been there, you should not walk, you should run there, as you'll be asked to run there as well. But in this facility, it's really a one-stop shop. I mean, it has everything from naturally his gym, his CrossFit space. I know there's physical therapy offered. There's actually even a barbershop inside. Christian offers an ice plunge as recovery. Really just a haven for anyone who is looking to get down, and as far as someone who's really looking to achieve a higher self, this is a community that you can join and feel comfortable knowing that the members of Move Fast, Lift Heavy here in Ronkonkoma on Long Island are ones that are looking to really get after it, right? They're looking to really achieve the highest level of self. And when you talk about the highest level of self, I want to go into that because I want to share with everyone who's listening and who's watching what my fear is. But first, I'd like to ask Christian, what is your fear in this world that you have, if any? Christian's a big, tough guy. He's a big, strong guy. There's no question about it. Christian, so what would you say is your fear day in and day out, if any?
My biggest fear is, I would say, letting my kids down. Growing up, I had somewhat of a absentee father. He was kind of around in the picture up until about 9, 10 years old or so, kind of in and out. And growing up, it was my mom and my dad.
Sure.
And I just do not ever want to put my kids in that situation. And so for me, I know I'm doing a great job right now.
100%. From where
10
I see
steps
things,
ahead
absolutely.
of my situation when I was their age. So I just want to continue to build on that. And one, never let them down, but also I want to have some sort of legacy for them. So right now, a lot of what I'm doing is to set myself up, set them up, so that they have something to continue in this family and make their own.
Yeah, I mean, it seems like what you're building, they'd be more than happy to take that baton from you, so to speak, right? And I can tell you this from where I sit, from where I stand, watching you do what you do as a friend and as a father of your two wonderful boys. It seems like you're doing a great job. So keep doing that. As far as fear goes, I think that sometimes can be the biggest motivator, right? I can share with everyone what my fear is, and my fear is not achieving what the best version of self can be. So it's so important for me to align myself with people who mutually feel the same way, right? Who feel like they want to be with the guys who are looking to build businesses, support their families, be great partners to their partner, right? To show up and be fit to serve, and I think of that. You can't take that so loosely, right? Being fit to serve means so much in so many different categories, but really the ones that are disciplined, the ones that have a routine, the ones that are consistent, and the ones that are looking to continue to be their best self, right? The ones that look in the mirror and are afraid of who they see if they're anybody less than their best self. One of the things that we talked about is Christian's physique, right? Obviously, the man is a stud, like I said, carved out of marble. Talk to us, Christian, about your diet and maybe some any tips and tricks for those who, naturally this episode's filmed in December, but, right around the corner is January, and January is always a really big month as far as looking to kind of change yourself, right? This is the year. 2024 is going to be the year. January is going to be the month. This is where I set the new tone and set the trend. So talk to us, Christian, about some of the things that you've done, you currently do, or that you aspire to do to maintain a healthy body and a healthy mind.
Sure. My nutrition journey really started when I got into CrossFit. I began with the paleo methodology, and paleo, if you're not familiar, it's essentially you're eating meats, you're eating complex carbs, but very little. You're eating nuts, seeds, little fruit, no sugar kind of stuff, just anything that is naturally made. However, paleo, there's no restrictions in terms of how much to eat. So it's really just about the food that you're putting into your body. So it's a great place for people to start, especially if you are somebody that really overeats or you're not sure of, how much to eat. You can just literally start by this method, and it would be a great way to get yourself off of the sugars, all of the middle aisles, and just start eating clean, whole ingredients.
You talk about the middle aisles. Talk to us, for those that don't know what that means when you say the middle aisles.
So the middle aisles, that means your chips, your cereals, the pastas, the breads, all of that kind of stuff. The stuff that lives on the shelves for an absorbent amount of time.
Sure.
Right? So it's staying away from those things, the sodas.
Sure. The shelf-stable items.
When you shop the perimeter, right, it's your meats, it's your produce, it's everything that has a very visible and known shelf life to it,
sure.
Right? If it goes bad, you're going to know it goes bad. So it's kind of having that mindset. When I started competing a little bit more and getting heavy into it, paleo isn't a great avenue for that because you need to start paying attention to the quantities that you're putting into your body, specifically carbohydrates. Carbohydrates are a huge macronutrient for anyone that is in any sort of competitive sport because it's something that is going to help fuel your performance.
Sure.
So in 2016, I started working with a company called RP Strength, who I still work with today, and they have really given me the tools and foundation to understand counting macros and the importance of what each macronutrient does for you. When I say macronutrients, I'm talking protein, fats, and carbs. And I've been using that methodology ever since. I'm at a point right now where things are starting to shift for me because I'm not competing as I once was, right? I was training 4 to 6 hours per day when I was in competition mode, which would require me to eat anywhere upwards of 4,000 calories per day. Not eating that or not competing anymore, my nutrition, it needs to take quite a big of a step back.
Sure.
Which has been quite the adjustment for me. So this app that is called RP Strength, it is very user-friendly. You basically put your goals in there, you put your vitals in there, everything from your height, your weight, your activity levels, your schedule, wake-up time, sleep time, all these things get inputted into the app. And based on that, it spits out, and your goals, whether you want to muscle gain, whether you want to maintain, or if you want to lose fat, it takes all of these things into account, and it spits out what you should be eating on a day-to-day basis. Not necessarily, it's not going to give you your meals, but it's going to give you the macronutrient count to plug in your food into the app, and you basically just follow along with it. For somebody that's just getting started out and they're not sure of a good place or a good route, the biggest thing I can tell people is to just make a very small adjustment to whatever your current situation is when it comes to nutrition. Nutrition is one of these things that I find to be extremely challenging and extremely tough to feel like you're making the right decisions. And if you can just start with a very small change into what you're doing, a very small positive change, it's going to be a lot more manageable for you in the long run to continue to build off of that. What typically happens, January 1, everybody goes from fast food every day to now I'm going to eat clean and do all these things, and 2 weeks into it, you fall off the bandwagon because it was too much too soon.
Sure.
It's no different than trying to go from couch potato to, all right, next week I'm going to go run a marathon. It just doesn't work like that.
Sure.
You got to take baby steps. You got to build a foundation. It's no different from fitness to nutrition. With nutrition, you could start with baby steps. If you're somebody that drinks soda, let's maybe drink 1 or 2 cups less per day, and then you can start to build and work off of that. If you're somebody that, I don't know, you're eating fast food 2 times a day, let's cut it back to 1 time per day. Do that for a few weeks and then continue to build off of that. It's no different. So if you're just getting started, baby steps, work your way, build a foundation, and you'll be able to have more success in the long run.
Yeah. It's so important, right? What we consume, specifically as far as food, right? But what we consume as far as who we're around and what they're saying, and we're consuming that. What are we consuming via social media? How are we consuming that? And what are we actually putting into our bodies, right? What are we drinking? What are we eating? And again, when you talk about consuming, how does that actually affect our mind? How does that affect where we're looking to go or how we're looking to feel, right? Like, I can tell you this, is that when I'm eating clean, my body knows it, right? My mind knows it. I know that I am extremely clear. I know that I am extremely present. And it's so important to be consuming things that make you the best version of self. And that's kind of, again, when you talk about this podcast, the Social Capital Podcast, having guests from all over Long Island, bringing real value. I don't think there's any more real than what we were talking about as far as the things that you need to do to change your day-to-day, how they're not going to happen from couch to marathon. It is going to be a slow crawl, but the bottom line is when you're looking at the slow crawl, you have to be extremely consistent, because small wins on a day-to-day will ultimately lead to weeks, months, and then ultimately years, right, of a completely different person that I'm talking to. I know Christian believes this as these are what we call sauna talk. I know when Christian and I get in his sauna and it's 180, 210, 215, and it's harder to stay in there, right? I know that these are the conversations that he and I enjoy, and we enjoy them because we're constantly in search for best self. When I talk to Christian on a day-to-day, not only am I inspired during the time that we're together, but one of the things I wanted our listeners to hear and our viewers to hear is Christian, where do you see yourself in the next year or 5 years or 10 years? And ultimately, you talk about building something for your children to have, which I think is beautiful. I mean, that right there is a sign of a great man and a great father. You should be very proud of yourself for that being the reason. Talk to me, Christian. Where do you see yourself moving forward? I know you're retired for now, potentially coming out of retirement. Where do you see yourself?
Yeah, great question. Still trying to figure some things out, but one of the big things is not competing anymore. It's bought me back a ton of time throughout the day to invest into myself, invest into my businesses, invest into the family. So one of my big things that I want to do at some point in this next 3 to 5 year span, or 1 to 5 year span, is I would like to open up another facility somewhere new. My mom has roots in South Carolina, so I would love to get down there one day and potentially, put some roots down there, whether that's a gym or whatever the case may be. I would love to, expand a bit.
You heard it here first, guys. Move fast, live Harry, South Carolina.
Another thing is, again, right now with the time that I have, is to double down on our online training programs. When you have a brick and mortar facility, there is a ceiling, right? You can only have so many people through the doors per day. So when it comes to the online space, it's pretty much untapped. It's infinite in the amount of people that you can inspire, infinite in the amount of people that you can have as part of your community. So right now for me, I'm really trying to build out a big online presence for a community. And right now, our online training program, we offer CrossFit programming for those that are looking to compete in the sport of CrossFit. We offer a hypertrophy program for those that are interested in aesthetics and want to take the more bodybuilding route as their method of fitness. And what I'm developing right now, which is kind of how I have been training because I'm not competing in CrossFit anymore, is kind of a hybrid approach. I'm doing a little bit of CrossFit style stuff. I'm doing a little bit of bodybuilding. I'm doing a little bit of running, right? So I am coming up with a program that encompasses all these different things. And we're looking to release that beginning of January. So being able to cater to different audiences for their different specific needs based off of my experiences and how I've trained for these things, it gives me, I think, it helps me to bring more value to the clients that participate in our programs because I'm actually somebody that's going through it, not just a coach that's sitting behind a piece of paper that's saying do X, Y, and Z. I've actually done these things. This is actually what I'm doing. And I know how these things work, and I know how these workouts will feel, and it allows me to just be a little bit more relatable in that sense. Just building that out, looking to open up potentially another brick and mortar facility, maybe in South Carolina, and then building out our clothing program and just kind of expanding that a bit more and trying to grow the brand and community.
So many things to talk about there. I mean, the first thing that I hear is where Christian really brings the value, right? Is in his experience. Christian, like he's talked about, has been in the CrossFit game, has been in the fitness world really his entire life, right? From a boy to a young man to now the man that he is today and the father that he is today. Talking about building out the online platforms of an app. Christian, for the listeners, how can they get how can they get notified? How can they find you or how can they sign up for January of 24.
Yeah, absolutely. Anybody that is interested, all you have to do is go to MFLH, as in Move Fast Lift Heavy, train.com. So MFLHtrain.com. You can find all our training programs there. You'll even get a nice big discount if you sign up today.
And one of the things, Christian, we're definitely going to continue to touch on is your clothing. Christian, for those that don't know, is not just a fit guy, but he definitely has the ability to market, right? Not only market himself, but market his what is really like a fashion brand. I mean, I see some of these articles of clothing, and I'll say to Christian, I can't find where you got that anywhere. So the man is on a mission to source the right fabrics, right? He's on the mission to make sure that the sizes and the quality of clothing that he's creating is of high quality. Christian, talk to us about the fire that you have associated with getting into clothing. I know that's something you love to do.
Absolutely. So one of my mission statements is I want to create and I want to inspire. That's kind of like something that I live by. And those two things, if I'm able to do that, it really keeps me energized and allows me, it just fills my cup being able to create.
Sure.
It's really important for me. So it's why I have a clothing business. It's why I write online programs, because it allows me to fulfill that creative outlet. When I was a kid, super big into art, I was drawing all the time, painting, sketching, doing all sorts of sculptures and crafts. Like, aside from sports and music, it was that. And, I remember doodling on shirts and, drawing clothes on, just blank white paper and just saying, like, I would love to own a clothing company one day.
Sure.
So when I got into CrossFit and I made my first regionals, I created a shirt that was a fundraiser t-shirt to help offset the cost of travel associated with competing. There's tons of registration fees, travel fees, you got to pay for room and board when you go to these things. And it can definitely add up. So created this t-shirt to help offset those costs, and the design that I put together was very well received. And from there, it just kind of gave me that aha moment to...
You had an itch.
We can get this done.
Sure.
So I called it Move Fast Lift Heavy. Came up with the name just because it's the two things that you need to do in the sport of CrossFit to have success. You need to be able to move fast. You need to be able to lift heavy. If you can do those two things well, you're going to have success in the sport. Fast forward, there's even more meaning behind the name of the brand, but that's kind of where it started. I started with, a t-shirt and a hat, and just continually and slowly built over the next 10 years or so to where we're at now. We're still a small company, not a huge company by any means, but we are global, and we've been in the space for a long time, where I've seen, since I started, a ton of brands come and go in the space, and we've been able to hang on strong and continue to make a name for ourselves.
There's no question about that. One of the things we talk about on our runs, Christian and I, is that how cool is it to see our own merch, right, in the wild. So one of the things, Christian, he's humble to not share. I know Christian was over in Europe in one of the games, and Christian, I think it was somewhere in France. Is that right? Somewhere in France, where Christian saw a Move Fast Lift Heavy shirt there. So as long as his brand is aligned, right, as long as the Move Fast Lift Heavy clothing brand is aligned with the CrossFit brand, as long as CrossFit stays international, and as long as Christian is attached to CrossFit, that Move Fast Lift Heavy brand will continue to grow. For those that don't know Christian, how can they access the Move Fast Lift Heavy brand?
Yeah, if you guys are looking into the apparel side of things, you can head over to mflhgear.com.
If Christian weren't in CrossFit, if the 25, 26, 27-year-old self of Christian weren't to stumble into fitness, I think it's safe to say you love the suck, right? You love the grind. I know I do too. What would Christian be doing?
Well, again, I've always been working out, but one thing that I was doing before I got into CrossFit, I was actually, believe it or not, I used to rap.
Get out of here.
I did.
Do we have anything for anybody today? Maybe we'll save that for another time.
Nothing off the top right now, but if you guys really do want to dive into it, if you check out iamchrisharris.bandcamp.com, you can find a mixtape there and you can download and listen to it.
Christian Harris, the rapper, Christian Harris, the CrossFitter. Christian, it is such a pleasure to have had you on today. I really appreciate the time you've took to be here today. Hopefully we will rejoin at some point in the future. But thank you so much for your time. Thank you for sharing your story, and thank you for making it on the Social Capital Podcast, episode 002. I appreciate it, brother. Thank you so much.
Thank you, brother. It's been an absolute pleasure.
Absolutely. My man. Thank you, brother.